Chapter 6.
Draco refused to allow his father to confiscate his wand. He allowed his father to take him directly back to the manor, leaving the rest of his school supplies behind for another day, if there would be another day. His father led him to a part of the dungeons where Draco had been taken only when his father was exceptionally furious, like when he was removed from the Hogwarts board or after the Muggle-born scored higher than him for the first time. As he was pulled down by his collar, it was all too reminiscent of how Draco had observed other Death Eaters handling prisoners in these chambers the previous year. It was familiar to have his mother sent away and the doors sealed behind them, along with the inevitable command to strip off his robes and shirt, a sure sign that pain was to follow. Yet, as they made their way down, this time Draco discreetly shifted his wand from his robe into one of his trouser pockets. Father usually took his time. Draco barely had a chance to settle into the hated old pinewood chair before Father lunged at him with a violent intensity in his eyes that used to terrify him more than it did now. Draco kept his wand close, though he had no intention of using it unless his life was truly at risk or he was about to destroy the future. He knew he couldn't overpower Father in a duel, even with the experience he had gained without Father's knowledge, and even with a wand steeped in darker deeds than Father could conceive. Attempting to duel Father would risk exposing the secret that he was no longer the real Draco Malfoy. "Where did you come upon that wand?" Father asked, his voice sharp as a blade, as he loomed over Draco with that unsettling snarl. It reminded Draco of their first visit to see Father in Azkaban, his face covered in stubble and gaunt like a living specter, skin stretched so tightly it left him with a permanent snarl. "How?" Father demanded, raising his wand to Draco's chest. The sound of his cane hitting the floor followed. Draco's heart pounded harder than he expected, worse than how it would have at 11. "Calm yourself," he urged. "He won't use the Cruciatus curse on you. He hasn't before. He'll likely just use stinging hexes across your back. Those are nothing compared to Crucio. And he won't force you to perform it on someone else. He most definitely won't do the things with you cornered alone in a dungeon that Greyback would." Nothing to fear then, except the uncertainty of what to say. His first instinct was honesty, damn the consequences for Dobby. He wasn't sure whether it violated the rules, or just their spirit for Dobby to assist him as he did. But no arrangement could save Dobby from his father's wrath, a more convenient target than the family's sole heir. At 11, Draco might have enjoyed watching the elf be punished instead of him, before learning through experience that there was no pleasure in it. He would have surrendered Dobby to Father if he was just any elf. But Dobby belonged to Potter. He was destined to rescue Potter from this manor, from Aunt Bella with that terrible wand. Dobby was supposed to become a war hero, of all things, and if Father harmed him too severely or killed him, it might doom Potter and his allies on that evening. Because Salazar knew that Draco could never muster the strength, no matter how many times he traveled back in time, to be the one to save them. "Draco," Father repeated, "I asked you a question," and Draco raised his shields in his mind, defenses even Aunt Bella couldn't penetrate. "I found it," Draco said, "in an old room, somewhere in the back halls of the manor. It was simply luck." His tale seemed unlikely, although it mirrored how he had stumbled upon the mirror that had precipitated this all. "Why did you take it and use magic with it?" Father demanded, pacing tightly before whipping back toward Draco.
"Why?"
"Why would you defy our orders and practice alone when you knew you were to learn under my, or your mother's supervision?" Draco tested his ability to deceive. "I just wanted to be fully prepared for Hogwarts, Father," his voice wavered, because you've always said my magic is too weak for a Malfoy, so I intended to start." The expression of contempt on Father's face indicated he believed it, but his next query was too precisely targeted. "So you needed a wand and, like the coward you are, asked for help to obtain one. Was it one of the house elves who showed you the way? Who else might have assisted you?" "No. As I said, I discovered it myself. It was behind a glass case alongside a sword and some coins. I didn't recognize it as anyone's wand in particular. I assumed it was quite ancient, Father." He infused his tone with a hint of childish complaint, evoking the errant son his father knew rather than a stranger dwelling within a useless little body. I thought all the dark artifacts were stored in the cellars. I didn't think. Silence, father commanded, and brought his wand close to Draco's eyes. No acting was needed to flinch away. It's impossible for you to have found that room on your own. Protective charms deter wandering. Only myself and our elves can access it. The glass is spelled. Elf magic removed it, didn't it? Draco briefly considered blaming another house elf instead of Dobby, but if Dobby was inclined to sacrifice himself for Potter in some rare Gryffindor-like bravery displayed by an elf, he'd probably leap forward with the truth rather than let another take the blame. I shattered the glass, father. This was true. With wandless magic, he added as father snorted. You? Wandless magic. Father chuckled, beginning to circle again. You've never summoned even a spark. Do you expect me to believe you shattered a guarded case containing the darkest relics of Malfoy Manor single-handedly? Draco nodded weakly, and father lowered his wand, a less promising sign rather than more, unlike it would have been with anyone else. Show me. Let's see this supposed wizardry only my son can perform now. Draco tried. Lumos, he said, willing for light or at least the sparks father had mentioned to spring from his hands, but his fingers felt lifeless, just as wands had in Ollivander's. Incendio, he attempted, imagining flames he had often conjured to burn through many notes, but without a wand, there was nothing. Father's laughter was chilling in its derision, erasing the ghost of the man Draco had seen in Azkaban. Of course not. Nothing at all. What surprises me, Draco, is why you would protect a house elf. Father's demeanor shifted to predatory as he closed in like a hawk on its prey. Do you think concealing the elf who assisted you in defying my commands will incur greater punishment? Or will persisting in these brazen fabrications be worse? Draco locked eyes with him. The connection was necessary to give Fathers any chance of believing the fiction. When he did, he realized no chance existed, despite his efforts. But at least he had faced him directly. I'm not lying, father. Draco foresaw father's intentions even before he was ordered to face away from him in the chair. Dragging the chair out from under Draco with a wand wave, Draco steadied himself to rise off the floor. Nearly raised from the stone, and to his knees by the time the first silent stinging hex hit. Maybe father wasn't using his wand, or maybe he was. He sometimes hadn't, perhaps not now, to demonstrate his prowess without it. The snapping force nearly drove Draco's face into the stone again, the hex's strength an indicator of father's fury. Father seemed very angry indeed. Just 2 more stinging hexes lashed before father's growl rent the air. Count, insolent child. Count, or I'll repeat the blows. 10 you'll endure, and we begin anew. Draco clenched his teeth against the cold stone beneath his knees. He'd underestimated this punishment compared to the Cruciatus curse viewed through the lens of an untested youth. He'd forgotten pain carried more sting when it manifested his father's loathing. Yes, father, Draco recited, and Lucius whipped again. 1, said Draco, obediently counting. His voice broke only at 6, truly 9 if calculations held true. By 10, Draco's breath hitched, voice wavering, though in earlier times, father's beatings would have him reduced to tears, pleading, collapsing, even urinating on himself. Only a hint of tears threatened now, maybe anger more apparent than despair. Well then, Draco, father remarked, some agitation mollified, you've received retribution for deceit and defiance. Forsake this folly. Name the elf complicit in the theft of your aunt's wand. Dobby hovered on his lips, ready to betray. Why it did not emerge surprised even him. He had always been spineless. Wouldn't his mother's life, his own, suffice to crack under another's will, as had often occurred? A fleeting notion, as delicate as a melody, danced and vanished, a faint recollection of the look on Potter's face as Draco assured him the existence of dragons. I've acquired it, Draco wheezed, while feeling that eerie taste of iron in his mouth, though nothing had struck him there, and his back was likely intact, not yet ripped open. I managed alone. No assistance. This admission brought Draco 5 additional lashes, each one tallied by a voice, quivering now, fraught with tears about to spill. The tally ceased when Father called for the house elves. Every single one. Never did Draco envision his father voluntarily showcasing his son, like an exhibit to their 13 elves, commanding them into the cramped, stony dungeon room to witness Draco on his knees. Perhaps it was meant to crush Draco's pride, along with his flesh. It was bad enough to endure such treatment, but exposing it to the elves added a deeper humiliation. Or perhaps Father hoped Draco might hand over the offender if that imp was staring him down. Draco detested them, a lineup of 26 stone eyes, with only Dobby's breaking the monotonous watchfulness. He had never appreciated the kind-hearted creatures, and his loathing intensified after realizing their bravery in defending Hogwarts from the Dark Lord, when Draco himself quivered in fear. Dobby, worthier to Potter than Draco. More heroic than Draco. The added pains were mere droplets amidst a storm. Let them behold, let them witness their future master endure what was their everyday reality. Even Dementors were less undesirable companions. Who, Draco? Father queried, moving away and pacing before the elves, his wand floating, lazily gesturing. Just a name, Draco, and this ordeal ends. Identify the disloyal elf who breached our home's sanctity, binding my minor son to a wand of my non-selection? Which one? Should memory fail you, my son, merely turn and point. I'll assist with names. Father's mocking had Draco trembling as he faced them, those shining eyes like a dim constellation of judgment over him. Their faces, all terrified, were less vivid than their piercing eyes. He avoided Dobby's gaze, hoping Father would too. Dobby's countenance, distinct from the rest, hinted more at guilt, or perhaps something nearing defiance rather than fear. None of them, Father. I found that chamber alone. Father barked with irritation, his staff striking the cold floor. Which one? He demanded again, and the elves remained mute, though Draco saw a couple flinch. They recoiled further when Father reinserted his wand into the staff's snake-shaped handle and raised it above Draco's shoulders. Interesting, Draco thought. His father seldom quickly escalated from curses to the cane itself. But it had been a while. Damn. Draco cursed aloud as searing pain jolted through his lower back, radiating waves of agony that curled his insides. It was unbearable, sharper than memories recalled, surpassing expectations. The second strike felt worse, his face pressing downwards, avoiding the temptation of the elves' gazes, resisting the urge to sacrifice Dobby by mere indication. Sacrifice meant Potter's demise. Perhaps, at Voldemort's amusement, such horror could be exacted by Draco himself. His eyes shut tight, steeling for the looming blow that hurled him nose first onto unforgiving stone, vomiting only bitter bile. He'd eaten nothing since morning, onto stones akin to those that had pooled brandy he spilled for Vince across, golden and mesmerizing, a universe removed from his helpless expulsion. It seemed as if his body's fluids had been hexed to turn against him. Unsure why the hurt intensified so, he cried while spewing, Father's staff hovering still, poised again, and maybe if he were different. Yet he wasn't. Wand untouched, he cowered, wishing for it to end. It was Dobby, cried a small, clear voice, as tiny footsteps dashed forward before the cane's descent. Dobby, shadowed and wiry, posed like a gargoyle of righteousness above Draco. I guided Master Draco to the wand. Dobby broke the chamber's glass to retrieve it. Blame Dobby, Master Lucius, spare Master Draco. No, Dobby, attempted Draco, terror descending, even as his retching eased, threatening to ensnare all his breath because in a blink, all was lost. Potter's game was over, and Father would. Dobby, Father sneered, unruly wretch, as his staff clattered to rest. The elven silence trembled, as sharply as any room filled with people, newly inhabiting Voldemort's wrath. Father's dominion over them paralleled Voldemort's fearsome hold. But Father's blow stayed. Draco seized his discarded shirt, cleaning eyes and mouth, willing no action to provoke Father into harming Dobby. Draco thirsted for the wand, wasted time, and jeopardized a homecoming. This is what he had sought beneath ground, yet he and Dobby found the lowest hollows. The mental severest chortled at which Wizard was worst used by getting his wish. Dobby will no longer let Master Draco endure to protect Dobby, Dobby declared with a boldness that dared echo Potter himself, cementing Draco's belief in Dobby's Gryffindor soul. Not anymore, Father snarled, flinging Draco's soiled shirt at Dobby. You'll cause no further shame here, elf, for I refuse any defiant creature in these venerated walls endangering my blood. Let this example educate you all. Follow my rule, or meet his exodus. Father spun on heels, seemingly leaving behind the pop of elves disapparating, after spotting one of their own endure an expulsion worse than death in their wide eyes. Yet for Dobby and Draco, he laughed. Uncontrollably, convulsing with mirth on the floor. Father, stumbling under rashness and indecision as usual, but he hadn't thought his father capable of such folly. If Father aimed for punishment indeed, not mere fright, the execution was woefully ineffective. Perhaps Potter could endure visits to Malfoy Manor yet. Whether Draco survived now seemed bleaker, yet fate boded better if laughter held the secret. Finally cackling ceased. He breathed through grimaces as Father threatened, "Deceive me never again," vanishing from Draco's peals. Master Draco, Dobby lamented, imbuing lifting hands with urgency. Master Draco ails. But Dobby must depart and yet falters, unable to forsake Master Draco here. Dobby must summon Mistress Narcissa. No. Draco chuckled, which morphed into coughs. No, not her. It's all right. Stop whining, for isn't it fortunate? Isn't it freeing? Father scarcely regards his elves. Though until recently, neither had Draco. Rejoice in your liberation from him. Be glad, Dobby. Earnest orbs soaked with emotion from Dobby met Draco's gaze. He gently hoisted Draco. Master Draco is kind. He is good. Master Draco, resembles Harry Potter. Potter. Draco blurted, bracing against the stone entranceway. No. Clarity evaded, and he couldn't reveal protecting Dobby for Potter. You've heard of Harry? No. Dobby gleamed, gripping what he saw as treasure from Draco's soiled shirt. Heard only tales, vanquishing the Dark Lord. Harry Potter is marvelous in Dobby's eyes. Dear God. The swarm of fans circling Potter still infuriates. Now elves too? I'm not, Draco insisted, attempting support for his aching back. Perhaps some spell might numb it if he reached his pocket. I can't aid you beyond this, Dobby. Seek Hogwarts. Perhaps they'll employ you. Dumbledore might pay you. Hogwarts, a kinder place than this. Draco Malfoy shall attend Hogwarts, Dobby exclaimed, and if Dobby serves there, Dobby will keep Draco Malfoy safe, guard him ever again. No, Dobby. Harry Potter is expected soon. You should help watch over him. Draco faltered, contemplating with detached criticism his Gryffindor-like urgings. Yet self-interest prevailed, masking selflessness for a future watchful of Potter defeating the Dark Lord. Ideal outcomes for many existed, and much Gryffindor behavior hinged there. Dobby shall protect you both, declared Dobby with a surprising sense of assurance. Not until Dobby had led Draco safely past the dragon flickering by his door did he bid farewell and, for the first time as a free elf, vanished from the manor.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!